why can't you stop thinking about it even when you know that overthinking is hurting you? Let me ask you this question. Have you ever noticed something strange about your own mind? You can know that thinking about a particular thing is not going to help you. You can know that you've already analyzed it a number of times inside your own head. You have replayed the conversation a number of times. You have considered every possible explanation that there could be. You have imagined what could happen next in the further future based on the information you have today. And you've even told yourself, enough is enough, I'm not going to think about this anymore. And yet, somehow, after 5 minutes, you're thinking about the same thing again. Has it happened to you? Perhaps you're laying in the bed, you're driving, you're working, you're not focusing on that thing, but somehow, suddenly, that same person, the same conversation, the same mistake, the same decision, the same uncertainty appears again. And you continue to wonder that why can't I just let it go? Now, the interesting part is that your mind is not necessarily trying to torture you. It may actually be trying to help you. And this is where we need to understand something really important about overthinking. You see, thinking is not the problem. Thinking is one of the most useful things a human brain can do, right? We need to be able to think to solve any problem. We need to think to learn from our mistakes. We need to think to anticipate danger and threat. We need to think to make decisions. We need to understand ourselves and other people. We need to think for that. And when something emotionally important happens, the brain naturally begins to process it. That is a given. The problem begins when thinking stops producing any new information and the mind continues to keep searching with whatever it has. You are no longer solving the problem, you're only revisiting the problem. And there is a profound difference between these two things. Now imagine if you want to open up a door and you're looking for the key. You have looked into the common places 10 times, and if you don't find it, you leave. Right? That's the most sensible thing you can do. But now imagine, instead of accepting that you don't have the keys, you could not find the keys, you keep trying to enter the same room and look for the same spaces again and again. You check the same drawer, the same table that you might have kept the keys on, the same cupboard, the same closet, the same pocket, over and over and over again, 20 times, 40 times. You don't even know how many times you have checked it. You know that nothing outside has changed, yet something inside you keeps telling you, you need to look again. And this is what often overthinking feels like, right? The mind is not necessarily producing a solution. It is repeatedly checking whether the solution has appeared yet or not. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Overthinking often contains an invisible hidden promise that if I think about this enough, I will finally be able to feel certain. Imagine if someone hasn't replied to your message. You analyze what they mean by doing that. If your boss has been seeming distant, you replay the meeting. If you think you've made a mistake, you reconstruct the event exactly how it happened. If you are uncertain about a relationship, you examine every interaction you've had with this person. If you're making an important decision, you keep comparing the possibilities without finalizing one. And underneath all of this is often the same psychological movement. That is, I need to know. But life contains something the thinking mind does not particularly like, and that is uncertainty. You cannot know exactly what the other person is thinking or would have thought. You cannot know precisely what the next month would look like. You cannot undo what happened yesterday. You cannot change the event. You cannot even guarantee the decision that you make today will produce the outcome that you anticipate, you desire, you want. And when the mind has difficulty tolerating that uncertainty, it may try to attempt its way out by thinking about it. Research on repetitive negative thinking has repeatedly examined the relationship between rumination and worry and metacognitive beliefs and intolerance of this uncertainty. It does not like uncertainty. So the mind keeps asking this question: what if? What if this happens? Why did they do this? What did I do wrong? What happened? What went wrong? What if I had said something different? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if they really meant what they said? Or what do they mean about this? And because there is no final piece of information available to you in the jigsaw puzzle, the loop remains open. Now, there is another paradox to this that we need to consider. You see, you tell yourself, do not think about it. But in order for you to know whether you're thinking about it, you have to check whether you're thinking about it. And now the thought is back. Now, this is like saying, don't think about a pink elephant. The moment you think about, I don't have to think about the pink elephant is first visible to you. And then you think about, I don't have to think about it. The mind doesn't respond particularly well to the suppression commands. So instead of making the goal of, I must stop thinking about this, you can change the relationship with the thought itself. The thought can be there without becoming an assignment for you to solve or resolve or finish or conclude. And that is an important distinction. There's another thing worth considering. Your mind produces a thought and then you unconsciously interpret that the thought has something that requires my attention. It is a given. Not every thought is a problem to solve. This is something that you need to understand. What if they don't like me? That's just a thought. Maybe I made the wrong decision. That's just a thought. What did they mean when they said something like this, or they didn't call me back or something like that? That's just a thought. The appearance of the question does not mean that you're required to answer it immediately. There is no given correlation to that. Your mind can ask a question without you having to investigate or even answer back. This is where metacognition becomes really important. Metacognition is broadly our ability to think about our own thinking. Instead of becoming completely absorbed in, why did this happen? Why did they do something like this? You can begin noticing that my mind is trying to solve this problem again. And that tiny shift changes your position. Earlier on, you were inside that thought. Now you're no longer inside the thought. You are observing the thinking process itself. That means you are outside that loop. Isn't that what we wanted? We wanted to be outside that loop, and it loosens the grip. Now you may try this the next time it happens like this. Don't try to fight the thought. Don't tell yourself, I should not be thinking about this. Instead, pause and ask these 3 questions. Number 1, is there something that I can really do about this? Is there something that I can actually do? Is there some action required? If yes, identify that action, make that call, send that message, have that conversation, make that decision that you've been delaying, write that plan that you have been procrastinating, take that first step. That's all you need to do. Number 2, if there is something that I can do, why am I still thinking about it instead of acting? What happens is sometimes overthinking disguises avoidance as a preparation tool, right? You keep analyzing because analysis keeps you at a safer distance from taking action. You may be scared of taking that action, of the repercussion that it can have. Number 3, if there is nothing that I can do about it right now, what exactly am I trying to obtain through more thinking? Is it certainty? Is it control? Is it a sense of reassurance? Am I looking for a closure by thinking about it? Or is it a guarantee that my thinking somehow will magically bring forward? The third question is the most revealing question, because sometimes what we are asking our thoughts is to give us something that thought cannot provide us. You may not need another answer. Sometimes the mind keeps searching for an answer when what you actually need is the capacity to live without that answer. And this is a very different psychological skill. You don't always need certainty. Sometimes you need to become comfortable with uncertainty. And this is the most profound lesson I have learned. You don't always need closure from another person. Sometimes you need to create closure within yourself. You don't need to understand why something happened, because anything can happen. Sometimes you just need to accept that it happened, and nothing more than that. You don't always have to eliminate a thought. Sometimes you need to stop treating that thought as an instruction. You don't have to follow it. Think about the difference between these two statements. One says that I need to stop thinking about this. And there's another one that says, I notice that my mind is thinking about this again. The first one creates a sort of internal battle. The other one creates a space. And that psychological space is very, very, very important. Because between a thought and your response to that thought, there is a small pause. And inside that pause is something very, very valuable. What is that? That is choice. So the next time your mind reopens that same file again, don't immediately ask, how do I stop thinking about this? Don't try to maneuver your mind into something. Ask this question, what is my mind hoping to accomplish by thinking about this again? Maybe the mind wants certainty. Maybe it wants control. Maybe it wants reassurance of some kind. Maybe it wants to prevent something, painful from happening again. Maybe it simply hasn't learned that the problem is no longer solvable through more analysis. And once you understand the function of this thinking, why you're thinking so much, you can begin responding to the need underneath it. Sometimes the way out of overthinking isn't to think harder, but it is only to recognize that there is nothing more for me to solve here, right now. And then what you do is you come back to the life that is actually happening in the present moment, in the now. Not the conversation that you're playing in the mind, not the future that you're trying to predict, not the past that you're trying to rewrite again, this very moment. Because your mind may keep knocking on the same door over and over again without having the keys, but you don't have to try to open it every time. Sometimes you have to let it go. Wow. If you like this video, we post many such videos on topics that are interesting just so that you can find inner peace, clarity, and helps you live a life that is to its infinite potential, something that life has to offer you. And I think it's a wise idea, if you like this video, that you could subscribe to this channel, Mind Healing with Bhavesh. I'd be happy if you do that. I shall be back soon again with another interesting topic, with some amazing discussion to be having. And until then, I want you to stay blessed, stay healthy, and catch hold of this wisdom if you can. I shall see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.